Hello, and welcome to Sobercast, where we provide AA speaker meetings and workshops in podcast format. We're an ad-free podcast, and if you enjoy listening, please help us be self-supporting by visiting Sobercast.com, look for the donate link, and drop $1 or $2 into our virtual basket. We hope you enjoy the podcast. Have a great day.
We're going to hear from Paul, and I'm looking forward to this. Big time.
My name is Paul. I'm an alcoholic. I am really happy to be in this room with all of you because I know that you know where I'm coming from, and I know that I know where you're coming from. I'm really happy to be in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous because so I think it's a program of plagiarism because you hear things and you repeat it. So I heard somebody say recently, may have been even here, that meetings are like dialysis for them. And that's true for me. So I go to meetings because it's like dialysis. It gets me healthy and clean. If I miss meetings, my body starts to feel weird. My mind starts to feel weird, and I just start to go crazy. So I'm happy to be here. Welcome to the newcomers. I still feel like a newcomer myself. So welcome. My sobriety day is March 5th, 2014. So I have 15 months. And I have a... That's inappropriate. I have a sponsor, and my sponsor is a sponsor. In fact, my sponsor's dog even has a sober dog walker, so I feel like that whole thing is pretty good. Happy summer solstice. So I used to use holidays as an excuse to drink. Right, big holidays like Memorial Day and 4th of July, or kind of recent ones. I would also use little ones like Arbor Day in April, or Flag Day, which just happened recently. So, I also used emotions as a reason to drink. Right, so. When I felt good, I wanted to celebrate and I wanted to drink. When I felt bad, I didn't like that feeling, so I drank to numb it out. And when I didn't feel anything, when I felt bored, I wanted to drink so I could feel something. Eventually I drank because I couldn't not drink. Right? I couldn't decide when to drink, when not to drink. I just drank. I grew up in New York City. I'm the youngest of 5 kids, and my father is an alcoholic. His father is an alcoholic. Back when I grew up in New York, it was very dangerous. So I felt scared a lot. I felt anxious. I felt lonely. I felt hungry sometimes. I felt like I was never good enough, and that's part of the life, the kind of the household that I grew up in. I also I was at a meeting last night, and the guy shared that his father had only told him "I love you" 5 times in his lifetime. And I was thinking, wow, that's a lot. My father has never said "I love you" in words to me, and that's alcoholism. That's the disease. I'm learning. In fact, it was only recently that I'm seeing that now, that it's not him, it's the disease, and that's me now too. I started growing up in this household. I would, being the youngest of 5, it was my job to go get the wine at night at the dinner table and refill the wine glasses 5 times through the night. And if God forbid I spilled anything. But it was just part of growing up. And starting in high school, I started drinking. My first blackout was on 151 Rom in Central Park, and a friend of mine got me home. He didn't bring me all the way home. He didn't live in Brooklyn, but he took me to Brooklyn and left me at my train stop, and then went home. So that was okay. I kept drinking. I drank for a long time. I drank for decades, and I tried to control my drinking, just like we heard. In that reading, I tried to limit how much I drank. I tried to drink only beer or wine. I certainly made lists, and at the top of every list was drink less, exercise more, and all these other things. And because I couldn't control my drinking, I never got to anything else. I'm an alcoholic, and I've learned that here in AA. But I always kind of suspected it, and so I kind of had this fear, the sense that. This knowledge that I was probably an alcoholic, and someday I'd have to stop drinking, but that was terrifying, and so I didn't really admit it to myself, but I had the sense. And one thing is, it's not how far, I've heard plagiarism again, it's not how far down you've gone, it's the direction you were headed. So I knew I was in the bad direction. I have an 8-year-old daughter and a 6-year-old son. I was not being a good father. I was drunk. I was mean. I was angry. I was bad to them. So I didn't want to be that father. Last year I was in couples counseling with my wife. And oh yeah, I forgot to say. So at Lent, that was the one time I could stop drinking. Was Lent. Like I was raised Catholic, and so I tried to stop drinking during Lent. It's something my grandfather had done. Apparently, according to my grandmother, he would stop drinking at Lent, and then he'd start eating vegetables, and start drinking milk, and he became this different person. So I would stop from time to time, and then the past couple of years I couldn't stop at Lent. Maybe for a couple of days, but that was it. So anyway, last year, couples counselor, beginning of Lent, my last drink was Mardi Gras night. And my wife was like, this drinking is really, really bad for our family. It's bad. You need to stop. So I took that to heart, and that got me in the room. And so bit by bit, very slowly, I've been kind of listening and learning about AA and about what it means to be sober. And I'm learning a lot. And one thing that AA is doing for me is what I'm doing through the steps that I'm taking is rewiring my brain. So I used to just have these knee-jerk reactions to drink, and through not drinking, I'm like literally my brain, my thought processes and my physical processes are changing. The obsession to drink was the compulsion to drink was lifted after a couple months. The obsession has been minimized a lot. I was in Safeway today. And since when does Safeway give shots of vodka as samplers? Well, the Safeway on College Road, so don't go up there if you're feeling kind of shaky. Sir, would you like to try a fruit-infused vodka drink today? Today? I was like, no, thank you. As I was buying yogurt, it was absurd. So far AA is working for me, and for me it's a one-day-at-a-time program. I don't take anything for granted. I know it's working through some subtle things. Last September, I had 6 months, and my niece, my sister's daughter, is 16. She's 5'9", 70 pounds, and she was admitted to the hospital for an eating disorder in Minneapolis. And my sister couldn't handle it. My family certainly couldn't handle it. Didn't know what to do. So I flew out because I heard that you can show up when you're sober. In AA, you can show up and you can be there. And that's what I did, and that helped. What else? A week before my 1-year anniversary, my wife said she wants to get divorced, split up. And so that's hard. That's been difficult. And I haven't picked up. And, 4 weeks ago she moved out, told our kids, splitting half time with them, 50-50. It's a very trying experience. And I'm so grateful that I'm sober to experience it. It's really painful, right? But because I'm sober, I can actually do it and be involved in it and not just run away. My 2-minute warning almost. Today, my son lost his first tooth. He's traveling with his sister and their mom. They're on the East Coast. And he lost his first tooth. And I knew it was going to come out. It was hanging by a thread. And so she took a picture and sent it to me. He's got a big smile. And he's very proud. And I felt a little bit of melancholy because I couldn't be there. But, I put that emotion kind of in its place. And I recognize that tomorrow's Father's Day. And his birthday is Thursday. He's going to turn 7 on Thursday. And he's not going to be here for that. So these things kind of add up. And if I wanted to dwell on them, I could get really bummed out. And I'm actually in a pretty optimistic kind of good place right now because of the program and because of talking to other alcoholics and because of getting advice from people who've been through this before and because I'm not picking up the drink. So that's, for me, we talk about cash and prizes. For me, that's like the cash and prizes is that the cash and prize is that I don't get upset over, I can live my life and kind of live on life's terms. And, I just want to say that I know that my kids know that I love them and that I'm sober to be in their life. And that, for me, is the cash and prize. That's important to me. So keep coming back. If you're new, keep coming back if you're old. Thanks.
And now Kitty is going to share with us for as much as she would like until 8:55.
I'm Kitty. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi.
I'm visiting from New York City, where I live. I am currently in the Bay Area doing an internship. It's been really awesome. I really like the meetings around here. I've made this one a couple times. I really like chips and cake on Thursday. It's a tearjerker. It's been really awesome. Everybody's been really welcoming, and I'm just really happy to be here. There's a lot of fucking people here right now. I don't think I've ever spoke to this many people before. Actually last week at Chips and Cake, like people were talking about, like, I forget, the theme was kind of like nervousness. Some people were getting up in front of a microphone and they're like, I'm really nervous speaking in front of this microphone. And like in New York, like we sit, we don't stand. I mean, I've done meetings in other places, so I hate to break to you, California is like the only place I feel like they make you stand in front of a microphone. And I'm like, you're probably nervous because they're making you stand in front of a microphone. Like it's not, it's kind of unusual. So I'm not used to this. But I want to share what it was like, what happened, what it's like now. Actually, I want to thank Dan for asking me to speak. Naomi and Dan asked me. They've been friends of mine since I was a year sober. I'll be 10 years sober in August. And they're the real deal. Like, I've been staying with them in their house. They've generously welcomed me with open arms, like rent-free. They feed me. They take me to meetings. They unconditionally love me. And their house is full of sober people. And their car is like, the relapse mobile. It's like full of people counting days in the back. It's constant. It really is. It's like a constant, they're just really legit in this program. And I just feel really fortunate to be their friend, and also that I'm here with them and they asked me to be here. So it's very, it means that they think highly of me, and I feel like I'm about to disappoint them, but that's okay. So, yeah, war stories. I was like, what do you talk about for 40 minutes? They were like, it's Saturday night, like, fucking war stories. People want the good shit, we'll see. There is a microphone, and I was like wondering if the statute of limitations ran out on a couple things. I frequently share in a meeting. I think I'm okay. So we'll see if it comes up. But yeah, let's see, my first drink, I was probably 13, maybe 12. Honestly, I am like a child of the 80s, and I was given prescription drugs when I was like 6. And they made me really ampy, so then they would give me like clonidine, which is kind of like Klonopin. I was like 7, so it kind of feels like my first drink was just a continuation of kind of the way that I came up, which is that, drugs were the way to kind of manage the way that you feel. And today I actually identify as being like abused with medication. But at the time, I think too, it's a product of psychotherapy of that era. It's like totally okay to give, mild methamphetamines to children. I still think it's okay, but as long as they're like someone else's children. But, it's a good time at the museum. But I think my first drink was with this girl, Jessica. She was a bad girl. She was like 2 years older than me. And I had met her in this program I was doing because before I ever picked up a drink, I was a mess. There were so many problems, I did not want to go to school. I distinctly remember being in 6th grade and just being like, I just do not want to go to school. And about the time of 7th grade, I just like refused to get out of bed. And, things would get like physical in my house. Like my parents had no problem, dragging me out of bed. And it was just like a lot of chaos and turmoil just to get me on the bus. So I figured that out, that if I just got on the school bus and it took me to school and then I just got off the school bus and walked home, by the time I got home, they were gone. And it literally took them months to figure out that I was doing this. And, I just remember it just being like really painful. And I think a lot of it was like about my home environment, but it was also just like, a maladjustment to life. And I know the book says, it's not enough that we were maladjusted to life. But I'm like, well, it can be that too. We really can. And I just didn't have a lot of skills. And so basically to cope. And so when drugs and alcohol came along, it was like the solution to a lot of problems for me. And so I was like in this school that was basically like a truancy school. And I'm like 13 and I'm surrounded by 16-year-olds. So, and that's, interesting, but, cause that stuff is scary when you're 13 and your friends are driving and some of them are having babies and everyone's doing meth. And so of course, when the alcohol's pushed your way, you're going to say, yeah, so, my first drink was at my house. It was with Jessica. She was like, let's bust into your parents' liquor cabinet. And there they had a bottle of tequila. And she took this really mean swig. And I took this like really kind of meek swig. And then she took this really, mean swig. And so I took a mean swig. And next thing I know, I swear to God, within maybe 2 minutes, it's escalated to where she is completely violently drunk. And my dad comes home, shits. And he's like, what the fuck is going on here, And she, like, completely freaks out and starts, like, attacking him. And, like, biting him. It was, like, some fucking bath salt episode. It was the weirdest. I didn't even know what was happening. She was just violently drunk. And he, like, calls the cops, and an ambulance took her away. And I was like, I know. And I was like, my dad is like, the ambulance leaves and he's like, what the fuck is happening? I'm like, I don't know. And I was like, can I go over to Sarah's house? And he was like, no. And I was like, fuck you. And I left. And that was like, basically like, that so much describes my drinking career right there. Like that right in a nutshell is pretty much, cause it was also, I feel like, the reason that I remember that is because it was also the first time I defied my father in a way like that. So it was a real game changer for me. And drinking, not just because of my social relationships, but also because when I drank, I felt like I didn't have to feel the way that I was feeling. And, it fixed a lot of things for me. It helped me cope. So I would say, I was, by the time I was banging dope on a daily basis, I wasn't even 16. So, we can skip on that because really that was just like kind of some foreplay for the real thing, which was, for me, it was heroin. And I don't mean to diss other drugs. Like, I love cocaine like the next addict, But I really did not like meth and coke or psychedelics because it was like hyper reality, like, and I just could not stand that, it was like reality times 10. And I am really into drinking and benzodiazepines and heroin. I like downers because I really like to turn down the lights all the way. I like to drink till I'm unconscious. That's my, drinking and using history. I used and drank till I passed out. And when I woke up, it would start all over again. You know, I would like to think that some mornings I woke up and there was some left, but I could never pull that off. If I could, I probably wouldn't be here. I'd still be out there because, you know, if there's someone if you can save some till the morning. So I feel like my real drug and alcohol use was just like full on at a very young age. And, you know, it was easy in the beginning because you're like a 16-year-old girl, right? So it's not that hard. You get away with a lot, including being arrested, or hustling money or saying I didn't do that or, oh no, not me, so it was kind of easy. And I ran with some crazy people and, it was kind of fun sometimes. Only because it was dangerous. And, I'm originally from Chicago and, I realize that drug economies are different all over the country, but in Chicago, you cop in open air drug markets. So, you'd be rolling into Cabrini Green, walking up, the project outdoor steps to go into like a room that's guarded by dudes in ski masks with like huge weapons to cop your like $10 bags of dope. And this was fine. It was like how you did it. I probably prefer it that way. I feel like later in my drinking and using, it became a lot more costlier to live like that. You got warrants and all kinds of craziness. So you do get more fearful, as we will all find out in my story. But in the beginning, it was like balls out for me. And the drug addict lifestyle agreed with me. And, it did get gnarly pretty quick. My first AA meeting, I was 16, 17. I was mandated to go. I don't remember anything about it. I think I got high with someone at that meeting eventually. But the first time I landed in detox earnestly, I was 19. And by that time, I had already caught a felony case. I had already been living on the streets. I had, kind of cycled through a lot of people that I knew, and I was kind of a lone wolf by the time I was 19. And I landed in a detox outside of Chicago, and I had a really bad kidney infection I had been walking around with for a really long time. And, the doctor took one look at me and he basically got me into this treatment center, on doctor's orders because he was like, you're basically going to die if you don't get sober. So that was the first time I wanted to get sober, and I wanted to get sober, because I was sick of running like that. It's cold in Chicago. It is not fun being homeless in Chicago. Let me tell you, that is a mean city. And, it wasn't easy for me anymore. Even though I was 19, I looked tore up and I didn't want to live like that anymore. But I also didn't want to stop getting high. And, I went from long-term, not really long-term, maybe 90 days, maybe 30, maybe somewhere in there. I have terrible memories, lots of overdoses, so you'll have to excuse me. There's like a couple of, years missing. It's all right. I don't miss them, but I went to a 3-quarter house in Chicago, and I was like doing the deed, and I got a little jobby job, and I was going to meetings, and I would chip on the weekend. And I probably had a couple months before I picked up, and I would chip with some guys at the 3-Quarter Guys House down the street. We would go down to the south side of Chicago and get some really good dope, and we'd all, take a Saturday night vacation. And had that worked, I would probably still do that today. I mean, really, when people are like, yeah, I have a drug problem, every Saturday night I get a little bit fucked up. And I'm like, but do you have a job? And you have a place to stay? Well, what's the problem? Because to me, that's like a successful thing. If you can drink and use like that, then what's the problem? Because if I could do that, that was like my measure of success. And, I have a lot of empathy. Like, I just heard a story not too long ago, someone who was like coming into the rooms of AA and, and they were like saying that they had time, but they were so full of self-delusion because they were chipping. And I have a lot of empathy for that, because to me, I'm like, that's the real mark of a drug addict right there. Like, that's some real shit right there. If you really, really believe that you're sober and you're chipping on the weekends, you belong here. Welcome. Have a seat, and you're not alone, because, we do that. Like, self-delusion is that's my biggest character defect. That's the danger spot for me, because I can tell myself all kinds of stuff. So, to me, like, I had it together. I had a job and I was, enrolled in classes at a, downtown Chicago, and, shoot heroin on the weekend. It's, it was a great plan. It didn't last that long, because I have an insatiable desire to use more. It's never enough. I thought if I use every once in a while, or if I use and I can save some till morning, or, all that self-delusion when we're drinking and using, I could never do that. So, it didn't take long for me to be back out there again. And, I hit a pretty hard bottom, and, I was just total lone wolf. I had a couple of people who would, reach out to me if someone died, and I wouldn't return their phone call for 2 weeks. I might show up at the funeral. And I disappointed a lot of people. I preferred it that way. I like to be by myself. I like to get high by myself. I was living in a basement apartment, where I basically was fucking the landlord to be able to stay there, because I couldn't scrape together enough money to pay the rent. And I was, walking distance from the dope spot, which is like my criteria, because I didn't have a car. And I would hang out with a couple other people who could use and drink like I used and drank. But for the most part, it was just me in that apartment on a mattress on the floor with no sheets, with a television that was super staticky with Cheers on, because it's 3 a.m. when I come to, always, and foils and needles just everywhere, so no food, no toilet paper. And, I stayed there for years. I wish I could say I was oh my God, why am I living like this? But honestly, I really didn't have a problem with the way I was living. I mean, I felt like a piece of shit. Don't get me wrong. I wasn't proud of myself. I was ashamed, but at the same time, I had a desire to get sober, but I also, I didn't really have a choice anymore. And, once in a while I'll come back around the rooms. I might be able to put together like 5 days, usually after I was released from jail. Because once you got that 48 hours in, you might as well go to 5 days. It's true, right? Everybody's laughing because you know it's true. But you know, I didn't have a choice anymore. And yeah, it was dark. I just think about this since it is Saturday night, we'll war story it up. You know, I have just this very distinct memory of, and I know it's like so trite in A, when people are like, and then I looked in the mirror, but it's true. It's totally true. It's one of those moments, you know, you look in the mirror, and I was really skinny. I had been hospitalized for endocarditis, which is an infection that you get in your blood when you shoot dope, and it basically means you're shooting garbage into your veins. And like I had ended up in the emergency room, and they're like, "Do you have a heart murmur?" And I was like, "No," because basically my whole body was so systemically infected that my heart valves weren't closing, so I couldn't actually like pump any blood, and I was so sick. It actually was a pain in my right side, because I was walking around, but you know, they put me in a room and they like basically put me on the infectious disease unit, and I was so dehydrated. I was so sick, and I was so thin that they could not take any blood from me. And I actually had a couple good veins, but I wouldn't give it to them, you know, because that was mine. And I'm still like that. I went to the doctor not too long ago, and they wanted to take blood, and I thought, should I help them? And I was like, nah, because, you know, I think that way, but I wasn't about to give them my good veins. And, you know, they can really only hit you a certain amount of times before they have to, I think, like, wait 24 hours or something. So they couldn't actually tell me what was wrong with me, but they were freaked the fuck out. Like, they looked at me, and they basically put me in, like, an Ebola tent. They were like, we're going to give you your own room. You know, and it was a teaching hospital. It's like 25 people would like shuffle in with like these weird like hazmat suits. You know, and my friend is bringing me dope, and I convinced them to give me methadone, and I'm getting morphine for the pain. And you know, it's like, it's not enough. You know, I can't wait to get out of there. So I never really recovered from endocarditis. I never put any weight on, or, you know, I was really physically sick, and I was 24 years old, and I was really, really sick. I was like, I had, you know, like a permanent eye infection that I just was neglecting. I had broken teeth in my mouth. I had bruises all over my arms from tying off because I wasn't hydrated. Like, I would just bruise at everything. And I had just track marks all up and down my arm. I was just a fucking wreck. And, you know, I used to like work in an escort service, and I would, you know, put on boots and put on the same fucking dress. And I would take this Mary Kay makeup. I highly recommend it. A lot of coverage. I would squirt it into my hand and rub it. And I would just rub it all over my arms to cover up, you know, my track marks. And, you know, that was my life for a long time. For a really, really long time. Like I said, I hit a bottom and I just stayed there. And, I really started wanting to get sober only when the drugs stopped working for me. If they continued to work, I probably would have been happy to stay there, but it started doing numbers on me. I started getting really paranoid. I thought I couldn't actually score any good dope. I thought everybody was not like a conspiracy, like meth-induced psychosis conspiracy, but I was like, basically felt like everyone in the world was burning me, because no matter how much dope I did, I would never really got high, but I would pass out. So I would be sober, and I would just do bag after bag after bag after bag, and I would be like, I don't feel anything. And the next thing I know, I'd like wake up 12 hours later. I mean, it was like, it was insanity, and it just like totally stopped working for me. And, I was obsessed. So what happened? I did a couple geographics, and what happened was I turned myself in on some warrants that I had been running from for a while. I have a couple felony convictions, but this one in particular was really haunting me and making me really paranoid. And, I got really worried that I was going to get caught up, and I had dried out for a little bit. And I thought, now's the time to do it. And I really thought what was going to happen is that I was going to go and spend a weekend there. And it was kind of going to be like I was trying to put my life together. So I thought I would go for like 3-4 days, and maybe I would find, I had my own plan, right, about how I was going to do this. Because at that time, I really did want to clean up my life. I didn't necessarily want to stop drinking, but I did want to clean up my life, and I wanted to stop running. And the judge was like, oh, no. You're not going anywhere. Like, yeah. So, yeah. So I had a really high bond, and there wasn't anyone who was going to bail me out anyway. And I sat in jail for a long time, and they offered me drug court. I didn't want to do it because it would mean that if I fucked up, which I invariably would, that I would have to do the full time. And I figured, 6 years actually means 1.5 years if I do this and time served and a little vocational program or something like that. So I was all ready to go to prison, and they, sent me kicking and screaming to rehab. And I was 1 year sober before I was allowed to be by myself. And that's how I got sober. That's just my story. A lot of people, they go to a meeting and they never drink again. That was not how I got sober. I literally could not, I didn't even trust myself when I was 1 year sober. And it wasn't really till I was 1 year sober that I could actually sit down in a meeting and hear what was going on as well. And so what really happened for me isn't necessarily where I dried out. What happened for me was when I was 1 year sober, and I left, the transitional living place that I was living in, and I started going to a home group. And I used to go to a home group in Chicago on Monday nights. It was a big book meeting, and on Wednesday nights, it was a 12 and 12 meeting. And they would read an entire chapter. They split up We Agnostics and Working with Others. But I sat in a chair and I listened to people. It was a meeting where you get called on. So, and I just listened. And it took me a really, really, really long time to figure out what was going on. If you're new and it sounds like everyone is speaking some weirdo, language, or, you really just do not understand. If you read the book, you will understand. And one of the things I really find the book helpful for is not just to understand what people are saying that comes out of the book, but what to understand that is not coming out of the book, which is also a survival skill in this program. It's really important to know what the program is really talking about and what someone else has made up as their own rules to AA. I'm just saying it's important, and you'll find all that in the book. So I just, I love that meeting. There was a friend of mine, Frank, who I still talk to. He was the hottest fucking gay man in the room. And he was like, come here, kitty. He would always save me a seat, So, and I loved that he loved me, because it was an all gay men's meeting. And he was like, come on, we're the cool kids. And so I came to that meeting, and that's why. I came because someone saved me a seat, and they made me feel included, and we went out for ice cream afterwards. And, he made me feel important. And so I just kept going back to that meeting, and I heard people talking about, I heard people reading the book out loud, and then I heard people with real time talking about it. And it was like a slow awakening for me. like I finally started to really understand what was happening in these rooms. Oh, you guys are talking about the big book. That's what's happening, you know. You're working these steps, you know. And it was a hardcore meeting, which is what I needed. You know, we didn't say that we were alcoholics. We would say, I'm Kitty and I'm powerless over alcohol, because that's the way that the steps describe it. And to me, there is a distinction. You know, I knew I drank alcoholically. I could call myself a problem drinker, but I didn't really concede to my innermost self that I was powerless, because, you know, Saturdays, right? So, you know, as long as you got that under wraps, you know, there's no need to do that first step. So, so conceding to my innermost self that I was alcoholic, you know, that took some time and some distance. That really did, because, you know, I was really feral and insane when I came around here. And I was really untrusting, and it took me a long time to just relax and really understand my lack of power over using and drinking. I wish I could say that I embraced the steps and did the steps, you know, wholeheartedly, but like I said, it takes me a long time to figure stuff out. For me, it's been that I do the steps over and over and over again. I have gone through 1 through 12 about 6 times in the 10 years that I've been sober. And, you know, those 4 steps get shorter and shorter, not just because, you know, I do less damage, which I don't. I do a lot of damage in recovery, but because I have all that practice at that 10 step, and like I feel more confident about what it is that I'm doing, and I understand how to use these tools. When I work with sponsees, I have them do like the workbook sheet, you know, like the small little Dallas Bee. If anyone uses those, I highly recommend those. Those are awesome, because my 4-step was like the Diary of a Madman. Like I just need this much to really talk about it. That's what I need. I need that sort of discipline. Those have been really helpful to me, to sort of anything to sort of help me understand how these steps operate. And my life now is, you know, infinitely better. You know, I feel like I've been through a lot in these rooms. I became seriously depressed when I was about 5 years sober, and I was so depressed that I started having involuntary intrusive thoughts. And, you know, my friends intervened, and I had to go like on, you know, some psych meds for a while, just to kind of like even out the body chemistry that was happening for me, because I was actually going through like PTSD like symptoms over some stuff that was happening in my life. And it like, you know, just threw me into therapy, which I had never embraced. It threw me into working on some shit that I just never wanted to look at. I also, you know, I've had a lot of grief too. So, you know, it doesn't mean when you get sober, it doesn't mean that your life is going to be perfect. But I am free. The fact that I can wake up in the morning and the first thought in my head isn't about drugs and alcohol is so powerful. It's such a powerful miracle for me. The fact that I can just like really do anything or go anywhere, because I could never do that before. I could never ever go like more than arm's reach from drugs, or more than, you know, walking distance from a dope spot. Like I couldn't get on a plane and go to a wedding, or not that that was like would be my first choice, but that's just like one of the things that like there was so much I could not do, you know, because I was just chained to my addiction. And it was all consuming. It was 24/7. It was never ending. And the fact that that is such a, like, it seems so far away from me right now. I'm very in touch with that feeling, but I can go days without thinking about heroin. And I can go to a bar and be around people who are drinking. I have no desire to drink. None whatsoever. Like, it's just like the book says, that it's like, you just feel like that indifference. You feel that protection. Like, I don't have to obsess about drugs and alcohol. I can psych myself out, but the true obsession comes after that first one. For now, as long as I, stay sober one day at a time, that it's not really an obsession. It's just that self-delusion. So, I am really grateful for the life I have today. I did figure out that school shit. I recently graduated from Columbia University, summa cum laude, which, I did not because I'm really smart, but because I'm an obsessive, controlling alcoholic, and I still consider that a victory. But it's something I like to share in the rooms because it was really trying with all that school shit. It did a number on me. I'm sober today. I realize how much actually I'm my own limitation. Like, I did not get sober to push pencils or to just get along in life. Like, I really, really am deeply devoted to, like, unpacking all that shit and embracing everything life has to offer and going for everything. And I feel like as long as I stay sober, I'll always have that opportunity. So thanks.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Sobercast is ad-free, and we'd like your help in order to keep it that way. So if you'd like to help us be self-supporting by pledging $1 or $2 a month, visit Sobercast.com and look for the donate links. Thank you very much.